Welcome everybody, this is Vintage Story, and we're here for Hardware Despair's cooking series. For these videos, we're going to be doing a deep dive into two particular mods, a Culinary Artillery and Expanded Foods. Now, I do have a bunch of other mods on my multiplayer server here, which is where we're at. If you're interested in taking a look at that, check the description down below. My full mod list, plus a whole bunch of other helpful links is there. But let's get started. Today we're going to be demonstrating how to cook fruit bars, and for that we're going to need to make gelatin. So we're going to explore that particular recipe, and let me tell you, you will be quite happy with the final product. So enough chatting, let's get into the kitchen. Alright, let's step into the kitchen. Here it is, where all the fun takes place. But first things first, whenever I step in, we're going to put away our tools. Let's hang up the items we're not going to need for cooking here. Don't need the sword. We're not going to be battling anything unless it's some unruly dough or something that starts to rise. But nonetheless, you can see I've got us all prepared with everything we need here. What we're going to be using today mainly is the mixing bowl, and I'm going to be using the cauldron as well as some barrels and buckets. Now, if you don't have a cauldron, don't worry, you can use cooking pots for this as well. I'm simply using the cauldron for large quantities. I'm going to be making as much gelatin as this thing will fit here today, and it's really, the difference is just measurements. The process is still very much the same. You'll see that the interface for the cooking pot looks very similar to the one for the cauldron there. So we will get into it, and I am, of course, as mentioned, on a multiplayer server, so it is my job as the colony chef to provide food for everyone. You can see this is the community cellar. We've even got a teleporter set up so people can warp right to it, and I'm looking a little bit low, but since we're making fruit bars today, we're going to be doing these mainly for the adventurers, people who might be taking on the Resonance Archive or some of the dungeons we've got here in our multiplayer world, because these fruit bars have a healing property to them, so they are very valuable. Now, one quick side note before we actually get started, I'm using the XSkills mod, and I'm a level 13 cook. If you're not familiar with this one, I really recommend it. It just lets you level up these various skills by practice or doing the skill itself. So cooking, I've done a lot of it, but the reason I mention it is because it does give my foods certain levels. They're going to be rare or epic or common or even bad quality, and that affects their stats. So by the end of this, we're going to have some fruit bars that might look a little bit different to yours if you're not using the XSkills, just in terms of their stats, but just something I wanted to mention to you. So let's get into the actual recipe here today. Here we are. So looking in our survival handbook under fruit, I found the fruit bar itself, and it is very yummy. Now, I want to emphasize again, we're using two mods for this recipe, Culinary Artillery and Expanded Foods. If you've not played with them and you like the cooking in the game, well, this truly does expand on it, so pick them up right away. But this is a bit of a detailed recipe. Now, I've prepared a lot of ingredients ahead of time. Let's go through it here. So using a mixing bowl, which you can hear clattering away over there, it is some peanuts or seeds of some kind. Now, if you're starting in the default, like northern region of the world, which is where you generate by default, you might have a hard time finding these, but if you head south, you'll definitely come across sunflower seeds or peanuts, which we're going to be using sunflower seeds today. I've got some of those, and of course any kind of fruit is going to be the secondary one. You can use candied stuff or just regular old berries off the bush. So the next one, it says yogurt, but this could be anything from honey to yogurt itself, which is not what we're going to be using. We're going to be using fruit syrup, which I have prepared ahead of time. We'll take a look at that very shortly, but okay, so this is the honey here portion, and you can also add salt to it to extend the life of it. But let's take a look at this fourth ingredient, gelatin. That's what we want. Yeah, this right here, as opposed to the yogurt, this is what we're going to be using, and yogurt's going to be a little bit harder because I think you're going to need some milk for it, but this recipe does not use any milk whatsoever, so you don't need to domesticate anything. But gelatin is simply made from bones and water. but it is a process to do. So that's what we're going to spend the first portion of our time preparing, is the gelatin. Once we've got that, like I said, I already have a bit of fruit syrup. There we go. 25 liters of black currant syrup. So this I simply got from juicing up some black currants in my fruit press and then boiling the juice, and that turns it into syrup. It's a very simple process, and in fact we're going to go through it with the bone broth right now. Okay, I've tried to get my inventory as clear as possible. That always helps when you're making these really complex recipes, but we're going to be starting with just bones and water. And you can see I actually disabled the mixing bowl because the noise was annoying me, but we'll put that back on there before we actually make the fruit bars. So what we've got to prepare with are some buckets. I like to use a whole bunch, so just whip up a bunch of these if you're doing large quantities like I am. But you can also do it with a bowl. You know, if you're just doing small servings for your single player world, a bowl will work for the measuring too. Again, it's just smaller scale. But this is really easy. We can get the peat set up here, full stack in the cauldron, because we're going to be burning here for quite a bit of time, because we've got to concentrate this essentially into gelatin. One round of cooking is not going to be enough, but let's go ahead and start the measuring process. If we look at the handbook under the bone here, scroll down, there it is. That's what we're going for. This is the raw gelatin. That's the final product, but the first step is just bone broth, and it tells us if we click on it here, you can do it in the saucepan. Oh, okay, I was saying cooking pot. You do want the saucepan, so which can be made using clay, just as you would a cooking pot, firing it in a pit kiln. You could literally make this item on day one of your journey, but the cauldrons are a bit better for large scale stuff. So all it needs is 1 liter of water and 1 bone per liter. So that's a pretty easy ratio for us. We've got the bucket, and again, I'm going to be doing as many as I can fit. There's 40 liters from 40 buckets. Let's see if we can get some more water in there. Okay, because I have plenty of bones. I'll tell you that much. All right. Is that the limit? It's an odd number to stop on, actually 67. You know what, it's probably because it's over a full stack. Let's take it back down a little bit. Can I go? Now, this is an interesting little quandary here. If you have the cups, or the bowls, I should say, or your buckets stacked together, then you're going to be doing it in groups of 4. So I had a little problem there. What I'm going to do is take a single bucket now with just this quantity, and boom, there it is. So we have 64 liters of water and 64 bones. That's probably going to be the max for the cauldron, because one thing you can't do is start to place like 2 bones and 2 things of water. It doesn't really work that way with this type of boiling. Essentially, these are just going to be empty for this process here, but 64 bone broth portions is quite a bit, so that's why I've got the barrels ready. We're going to be using these to go back and forth with bone broths and whatnot. So let's get the process started. I will light it with the torch, and we'll give it a bit of time to fire up. Oh boy, those bones are red hot. The water's also pretty warm, and there it is. So the cauldron has finished. Let's pull these out just to conserve. I am going to get another round of 64 going, but we'll just start with this, and we're going to pour it, boom, directly in. Yeah, the barrels will hold quite a bit. Put that massive cauldron back down. Yep, there we go. It's good for 2.5 years, and that's not even in a proper cellar either. So this thing's going to last quite a bit. Now, let's open up that guidebook one more time, and let's look at the bone broth itself. Okay, the bone broth portion. So what we're going for next is not gelatin, it's pre-gelatin. That's right. So we could go with clarified. I actually don't know what you would use this for. Looks like it's for different recipes. Yeah. So we won't worry about the clarified. That's not the focus today. Pre-gelatin is, because of course the goal is full gelatin, which we will then flavor, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. So if we click the pre, Yep, there it is. This is created by 1 liter of bone broth, which we just have 64 of, and 1 bone. So we're essentially thickening this bone broth with more bones. That's right, that's right. So, like I said, I'm going to get another batch going, but let's go ahead and just do... Yeah. Let me get another batch so I can kind of get a cycle, and then once we're ready, we're going to thicken this up. Alright, just out here collecting some fresh black currants off my bushes. As you can see, we're not going to be mixing flavors at all. Let's put those white currants away. Yeah, these fruit bars are strictly going to be black currant flavored, from the syrup to the fresh fruit itself. Now, let's check on that second batch of bone broth. It is done. It should be there, but we're going to pick it up because we need to pour it back out, and then pour it in, and of course add more bones to it. So let's put that back in our cooking. I've got some buckets here, so it doesn't matter which one. It's good that we did a double batch, because of course I need lots of this stuff. Are we out? Alright, let's start to add what we've got here, and I'm going to get all 64 liters in here. Alright, there we go. We've got the 64 bone broth from our 2 portions, and boom. Excellent, excellent. It's going to be a lot, but not to worry. So we've got to just simply wait for that to cook. You can see I've got my sunflower grain ready. Of course, the syrup's behind us, and we're not quite done. This will, of course, make pre-gelatin, so we've got another step for gelatin still to come. Well, with the cauldron bubbling behind me, I decided to whip up some spelt dough and bake a little bit of bread. Here we go. This stuff is good for, of course, feeding hungry colonists and trading to certain of the NPC traders and get you some gears. They even accept flax bread too, occasionally. But let's check on our pre-gelatin. Ooh, almost there. We're just waiting for this little arrow to fill up. We've still got some peat in there. It's a slow process. I guess you could use charcoal if you wanted to speed it up, but your blacksmither might be a little bit upset with you. So let's flash forward to the completion here. And it's done. There we go. Let's grab the peat to conserve that. And we've got one more round of cooking before we've got final gelatin. Don't forget, this is just pre-gelatin. So while we've got it in our hand, let's open up the handbook and take a look at the final recipe. Alright, here's our pre-gelatin recipe, which simmering ingredient for raw gelatin. Oh my gosh, we're so close. And like I mentioned earlier, once we get this process done, as long as you've got most of the other ingredients on hand and prepared, it's super simple. So this is the hard part, but what we're looking at now is 0.1 liters of pre-gelatin. Be very careful here. 1 bone, so we're further concentrating it, and then water as well. So what we're going to do is measure this out very carefully, but I'm going to be making it in bulk, obviously. So in order to actually measure it, we're going to need to pour it out. There we go. And I wish we could just leave it in the cauldron, but it doesn't really work that way. You need it up here so that it, detects it and gives you the final recipe for it. But not to worry. So let's go ahead and grab a couple buckets of it. There we go. Did I get it? I've got 6 liters of pre and 10 liters. Is that it? Wow, that's all it boiled down to. That's incredible. All those stacks of bones, just a little bit left. So let's start with 1. We'll try and keep this in increments. So then that would be, 10 liters? There we go. And, I forgot the bone too. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go. I've moved the water and I've got the bones now. When we put 10, we should see the little confirmation or the recipe itself pop up. Boom, there we go. 10 raw gelatin. Very nice, very nice. But I think we can do better, so let's fill this sucker up. Okay, there we go. So basically our limit is the bones here, yeah. We can only do 60. I can't really do 64. This is simpler this way, yeah. So we're just sticking with the nice round numbers. 6 liters. We've still got 10 liters left, so I could make this plus a bit more to go. And that's going to give us 60 raw gelatin. which you'll see does turn out to be quite a few bars. So let's go ahead and fire this up. I'm definitely going to need more peat. Okay, good. Yep. The cauldron is still hot, so the fire sparked right up. And yeah, like I said, I've got some peat sitting outside. I'm always prepared. So let's flash forward to what is almost the final step. It's the middle of the night, but the cat is still awake. Go figure, huh? Of course, I've got him behind a little fence and gate while we're cooking. Don't want him in the kitchen, right? No. So I think we might be able to go ahead and close up our water source because the gelatin is finished, people. Look at that. This is what all that hard work was for, raw gelatin. And like I said, we're almost to the final step. Now, I think technically we could use the raw gelatin and just go ahead right into mixing up fruit bars right now, but I'm going to take the extra step, give it a little bit more saturation, and add some fruit to it. So you can see we've got pear gelatin here highlighted. I'm not going to be using pear, but it's the same process. So one more time into the cauldron, and I promise then we're on the final stage. But we're going to do raw gelatin, the syrup, which like I said, I've got a bucket, or a barrel I should say, full of black currant, and then double water. I actually don't know what the difference here is if we dilute it further versus not doing that, but I'll see how the output comes up. So yeah, let me take a moment to fill this up real quick with the necessary ingredients. Okay, well, it took a little bit of finagling here, but unfortunately I separated the stack of 60 gelatin and then it wouldn't go back into a 60 stack. It only goes up to 32, so I'm basically just doing 30 here, and that's 3 liters of the syrup and 60 liters of water, but the outcome is 30 blackcurrant gelatin. Like I said, we're gonna fire it up and let's warp to the finished product. The final step of our fruit bar adventure is upon us, people, but we are going to be using the mixing bowl for this. Now, you can do it by hand. It takes forever, though. It's similar to the cairn. You can stand there and, manually do it, or hook it up to a windmill. And one of the things I've learned in my time with the multiplayer server is not every windmill needs to be a giant monumental construction. I've just got a very small personal windmill, and if we pop back down into the kitchen, yes, of course, you can see I've rehooked it up and it's empty but fully ready to go. We've got a good little bit of wind too, which could change at any moment, so let's take advantage of it. Hey, there it is. Oh, we've got it, finally. The hardest part of this whole recipe is now complete, the blackcurrant gelatin. And I've still got plenty more. I've got 10 liters of pre-gelatin. I've obviously got lots of fruit syrup left and whatever else. Oh, I put it over here. Yeah, there's still actual raw gelatin left too, so I'm going to be working with this stuff quite a bit in the next coming hours. But for this video, we're going to finish it up, like I say, and mix everything together and let this thing, with the power of the wind, do its trick. Now, let's go in. We'll just use one of our ingredients to find the fruit bar. There it is. The recipe is laid out in front of us, and again, I will be adding salt. I do have halite access to it, so I've got plenty of salt. What I like to do, just to keep it straight, is I'll line up all the ingredients in my hot bar the same way they've got them here, because that is going to matter, the order. Now, let's go ahead. I think the limiting factor is probably going to be the gelatin. Well, let's just get it all in here and see how it goes. It's 0.1 to 0.1, so yeah, let's toss in as much as we can get here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So it turns out the limiting factor in this recipe is the syrup. The mixing bowl will only hold 3 liters of this stuff. I tried to do 6 or even 4, but it doesn't work. It only takes 3. But you can see that it's going to be whipping up quite a few of these for sure. So what I will need to do is, I guess we can add more of the other ingredients Yeah, that doesn't mess up the recipe. You would know if you mess something up, then it won't show the outcome of what you're making up here. That'll go blank again, just like that if I remove something. So you can't mess it up as long as that's still there. And our measurements are the same. Oh, now like I said it at the outset of the video, some of these stats are going to be different if you're playing without XSkills, or even if you are, but you've spec'd in slightly differently than I have, or maybe you're lower level or even higher level. But the point is, this is an incredible food with healing properties that even without salt is still going to last for, a couple 100 days in the right kind of storage in your backpack, at least a couple of months. Good enough time to go on a nice longest adventure, hit up the archives, maybe do some of the other story content. But, well, we've done it, people. We have accomplished the fruit bar. One of the more complex recipes in the game, at least if you're using Culinary Artillery and the expanded food mods, which once again I highly recommend. So check those out, guys. I'll make sure to link them in the description below. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you got any addendums to the recipe, or if it's helped you out. I always love to hear that too. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I plan on doing a lot more of these cooking videos, and I'm going to do tutorials for other mods too that I really enjoy but might be a little bit confusing. But nonetheless, guys, thank you again for joining me here in the Hardware to Spare kitchen, and as always, I will see you guys on the next one.